Hey, welcome to another episode of Rocket MSP. I'm Steve Taylor, your host, and I'm super pumped. I am joined by Jason Cohen from Mission Control Knock and HelpDesk. Jason, welcome.
What's going on, Steve? How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How about you?
I'm good. For
Yeah.
some reason, because I live in Toronto, we're having this wildly mild winter. February is just like I'm in the pluses right now, which is unheard of. So I'm in good shape.
Yeah, I think today what did I read? Like today's supposed to be 70 here, and I'm in the Cleveland area. Like it's not supposed to be. In fact, now I'm dying to know. I'm going to hop on weather.com
Yeah.
because squirrel. Yeah, it's 66 right now in Medina.
Yep. Our snow is melting. Like it's not normal. So I'm in a good mood. There's a lot of people that are happier today in the last few days. So
There you go. So I am hopefully able to still hear you. I switched to my headphones. I forgot to do that earlier. Uh, so I want to make a simple announcement to everybody. Um, Rocket MSP isn't going anywhere. I know for those of you that follow me on social media, you might have seen that I'm getting laid off and Rocket MSP got acquired. I got laid off. I'm getting Rocket MSP back. We're parting as friends. Okay. Things happen. And we all kind of collectively decided let's just go our separate ways. I don't really want to get into it because it frankly is nobody else's business. I'm happy. They're happy. I get Rocket MSP back, and I'm going to go back to my roots because I did pick up a new job. I'm the marketing manager for an MSP out of Ohio, Avram Technologies. I'm super stoked about that, and I'm going to do Rocket MSP for fun, man. I don't have to worry about monetizing or getting members or anything. So this is just us having a good time, Jason.
you'll probably be the best you've ever been at it. You've got all the experience. Now you're doing it for the right reasons, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so the only downside is I'm using a PC instead of a Mac, so I can't figure out how to control my webcam. So I might actually have to make an investment into like a real camera setup if I'm going to continue doing this on a PC. But these things happen, right? So, with all that said, let's just dive in. Let's talk about mission control. You guys have some new stuff going on.
It's so exciting. We're doing so many cool things. Some of the integrations that we've been building and the new services we're launching. We just want to help as many partners as we can in 2023, and it seems to be the way it's going with all the hiring challenges and staffing challenges of the world today. And again, it's not a Canadian thing or an American thing. It's very much a
Mhm.
global problem. So we're seeing large spikes of need for 24/7 services and white labeled outsourcing services and things like that. And because we're so well positioned and with the new integrations, we're doing well.
Great. So, one of the things that I've heard is you guys have a Kaseya BMS integration.
Yep. So for those following us, they would know that our roots come from the Autotask world. And then when Datto acquired Autotask, we were able to stay within everybody's good graces and develop a relationship with Datto. But what was interesting was we had to expand because Datto's client base was not just Autotask; it was all over the place, right? A lot of ConnectWise partners, other technologies, etc. Obviously, now with Kaseya's acquisition of Datto last year, that even just further enlarges the scope of products and services that an MSP might use that might be a Kaseya product. And so we had to develop further integrations. So the latest integrations have been with Kaseya's BMS platform. So that's the PSA. So now we're able to integrate with Autotask, BMS, ConnectWise, Manage, and Synchro MSP. We have Halo coming on the way. We have Ninja on the horizon. So there's some good stuff coming there. We also
Great.
integrated with some of the most on our cybersecurity part. We've integrated with some of the industry's top SOC tools, which would include Kaseya's Rocket Cyber or Datto Managed SOC, which is also really awesome.
Cool. So you'll probably remember I actually titled this Cyber Response Unit.
Yeah.
So I wanna dig into that, man. You guys have this new cyber response unit. What the heck is that?
So the crew, CRU, or cyber response unit is what we're calling it. But basically what it is, it's an extension of a SOC tool for the MSP, particularly that does not want to be an MSSP. What we find is there's an amazing amount of MSPs that don't feel strongly about either their skill sets with the cybersecurity stuff. They don't want to study how to become an MSSP or deal with cybersecurity remediation. And the truth is that a lot of the industries and channels top cybersecurity products, the SOC tools specifically, they're amazing at detection. They will find things that, whether it be an Office 365 attack, things from other countries, something on a firewall, something from a Sentinel One, whatever it is, they find all these things. And in 99% of the time, they're not critical, they're not time sensitive, but something needs to happen. They will make a ticket in the MSP's PSA for the MSP to do, and the MSP has to do it. In 1% of the time, it'll go to the analyst, and the analyst will say, oh, this is actually really serious and time sensitive. It's critical. We need to lock down and isolate that device. They'll do that. And then they'll call the MSP, tell them what they've done, and recommend next steps. But that means in 100% of the time, these SOC tools, although they're doing an amazing job at detecting, they're leaving work for the MSP to do 100% of the time. And there are a lot of MSPs that, again, they don't have the time, they don't have the resources, they don't have the skill sets, they don't have 24/7, they don't have the MSSP expertise to be able to handle what the SOC tool then leaves for them to do. And so our crew, our cyber response unit, is focused on full remediation for anything that will come out of a SOC tool as a full solution.
Got it. All right. So that sounds really cool, but I mean, I feel like one of the things that happens with outsourced Knox and help desks, not just yours, any of them, is it sometimes feel like the goal is to push the ticket back to the MSP as quickly as possible. So how can we feel like the crew is going to do a lot for us when that's kind of the sentiment?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Because, and the truth is, it's not really a cybersecurity related question, right? It's really anything that a knock and help desk or company like us would do.
Hmm.
Escalation is probably one of the most sensitive words in our space, because escalation typically, I would say not with mission control, but typically means a one-way permanent stream. With our competition, it's well known that you would have a ticket. Let's say it was a password reset for Office 365, something simple. But let's say that something wasn't documented as far as like Office 365 admin credentials. They go looking for what they can. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. They can't find it. Then they escalate to the MSP, but that escalation becomes permanent. There isn't really a good way for the MSP and the knock and help desk company to communicate. And there isn't really a good way to give it back to the knock and help desk company if they would provide a missing piece. We've really changed the game with respect to escalations and what we can do because of the integration within the ticketing platforms and within the real-time communication tools like Slack and Teams. So let's take an example. Let's say there was it doesn't even matter again if it was a cybersecurity event or just a simple password reset. And let's say the MSP was on lunch and we go looking in the password vault or the documentation platform. We can't find what we're looking for. We are stuck. We literally can't proceed with servicing this ticket. But that doesn't mean that it's the MSP's problem. It means we need their help. We go looking at the MSP's escalation paths. So that might be message them on Slack or Teams. We do that. If they're there, they respond back with what we need. We keep going. If they don't, we move on to maybe a text message, maybe a phone call. And even if they don't answer the phone, we leave them a voicemail. And then we're actually going to escalate the ticket as that final step. When they come back from lunch, they're going to get our Slack team message. They're going to get the text message, our voicemail, and our email with all the notes. And they're also going to see the ticket as noted that it was escalated from mission control. If they were to open that ticket and either add a note in there for what they needed or respond to Teams or call us back or any of those other things, they could then change the status in their ticketing system in the ticket from escalated from MC to escalate to MC. They literally do a status change and send it back to us. So we have a whole bunch of real-time communication methods to avoid an escalation. Then even if we escalate it, they have a way to give it back to us. So, and I don't think that's, again, cybersecurity specific. That could be anything. but we want to make it easy for the MSP to give us what we need so we can keep going. That's the real difference, and a way to get it back to them. That'll make sense.
Yeah, actually. All right. So, for those of you watching live, by the way, feel free to pop your questions into the chat. I want to give Jason an opportunity to answer everyone's questions, not just mine. Okay. All right. So, I want to go back to the cyber response unit. What kind of tools, like, are you providing the platform for this with all the tools, or are you just providing the people to monitor our platform?
It's the people. So, there are certain obviously systems that we can integrate with. So as an example, I made the mention of Rocket Cyber Data Managed SOC, right? So that tool is one of the integrations we have today. So for an MSP that's looking for a SOC service, doesn't have one yet, and would come to us and say, which tools would you work with? We'll give them the few that we work with, and they can go and interview those products. But one thing we don't want to do is steer them in any one single direction. Just as the same as PSAs and RMMs and documentation platforms, we want the MSP to choose what's best for their business. And if it's something we can integrate with, we will use it.
And I understand that, you want to play nice with all the other vendors in the channel and not say anything mean or whatever. But have you found that there is a platform that provides better information, maybe because it's got more integration power, or I don't know, anything?
So I can't. You're putting me in a direction that will put me in that position. So I can't go that way. But I think the things to look at certainly are integration into the ticketing system. So know that there's a ticket that can get made that can get serviced. Look for the integrations into the various services. So if you're using, as an example, FortiGate firewalls, find a service that can integrate with that. If you're using Sophos or anything else, make sure it has that. Office 365 and Google are very commonplace these days. So obviously you want to look at something that will integrate into Office 365 tenants and look for things like if logins are coming from countries that you don't allow, or multiple bad login attempts and things like that. There's so many.
Sorry, I thought I put this on Do Not Disturb. I will definitely have to ignore this call.
Was it a good one?
It was my wife.
Oh, we're live, so I won't.
She's fine.
But yeah, I mean, when it comes to the SOC stuff, again, that's and then you've got the AVs, so your SentinelOnes, your Bitdefenders, you've got your DNS protectors, you've got your anti-spyware stuff, anti-spam as third party. So there's a lot of integrations to consider, and obviously all these companies are doing their best to develop. But for us, I think the biggest thing is looking for something that, again, the MSP can be confident with. And I mentioned it earlier, like, we don't want to steer them in one direction or another, mostly because an MSP can pick and choose with us what we work on and what we don't. They can literally say, and let's focus on the crew for a moment, the cybersecurity stuff. They can literally say, only deal with the non-urgent stuff, or like the urgent stuff, or only the non-urgent stuff for this client during these hours. They can get really specific with it, which means that they're using the tools that they got for everything else that we don't do. They're doing the rest of the job, right? So that's why we want to make sure that the MSP is choosing tools for that's best for their business and their team. And if we can integrate with it, then we'll be able to work with it.
Okay. So let's talk about best practices. So there are a bunch of ways that MSPs can set up these security platforms. And by a bunch, I mean there's a lot of wrong ways we can do it, and there are some right ways we can do it. So do you have and provide any documentation as far as, hey, we have found if you configure Rocket Cyber with these settings, that we'll get the best alerts without too much garbage that we can take action on? Or
yeah, for sure. And to us, it's no different, honestly, than RMM, because again, with the various RMMs that you'll have out there, when an MSP first comes to us, that RMM may or may not be very well tuned and tweaked. The same thing as Rocket Cyber, we're also integrating, for example, I'll mention Barracuda Managed XDR, formerly Scout, right? So those two platforms, they do things very differently, but a lot of their stuff is looking for is very similar things. But the tuning of those and the creation of the settings for what creates a ticket can be adjusted. And so we'll help with that. It's in nobody's benefit, not the MSPs, not ours, for a whole bunch of noise that doesn't matter. But at the same time, you also want to be looking for things that get overlooked as noise, and they're really actually longstanding things that keep recurring that could be resolved.
Okay. And have you found that maybe there's a common thing that MSPs are missing when it comes to configuring either their cybersecurity tools or their RMMs?
Okay, so this is kind of where the crew kind of was born from, because I think that there's an industry misunderstanding of what the SOC is intended to do. I think it comes down that part of that comes to the configuration, right? I think no matter what SOC service you get, you sign on, you're going to go through an implementation. Sometimes there's various levels of implementation, but if you were to choose the top one, then you have specialists that are going to guide you through, okay, what do you want it to do? And they show you how to tune it, right? But I think the misunderstanding in the industry is that you're going to pay a few dollars for a SOC agent license. It goes on a machine and you're done. And you charge your client double or triple whatever you buying it for from the vendor. And now you're an MSSP, you're a cybersecurity confident MSP that is offering cybersecurity protection for their clients. And the misunderstanding is no different than an RMM is a tool that is going to look for things and make a ticket and will give you work to do, which may or may not be billable. The SOC tool is going to do exactly the same thing. It's going to be cybersecurity focused. It is going to find something, cybersecurity, that it is concerning itself with. It's going to make a ticket, probably, and let you know that you have work to do for the client, which may or may not be billable. I think a lot of MSPs are presuming that that work is small in quantity, and a lot of them aren't even billing for the remediation pieces. And that worries me a lot, because that's not what SOC is intended. SOC is intended to let you know. That doesn't mean that you're not supposed to charge for your time to resolve the problem. The problem still exists. There's still work to be done. And sometimes it's a lot of work, depending on if it's a new client you've inherited that's just a mess, or a client that's never been properly serviced by IT, or you're new to cybersecurity protection and you've not really learned the best practices and such, and you need a lot more handholding, but still that's time that the MSP will spend. I feel that the MSP space, the channel, the MSPs that are using SOC these days, a lot of them have some misconceptions about that.
And refresh my memory, because I know like this whole crew thing is new, right? So you guys are monitoring our security platforms and our RMM and whatever, all the logs that come in, right? And are you reviewing that, and like I can't think of the right word. Are you looking at multiple sources and saying, hey, you know what? This event and this event and this event means it's probably a breach of some kind, even though like the next gen AV or whatever might not have caught it, because each of those things normally is fine.
Right. Well, and I think so. First of all, we absolutely have to do that. We would do that if there was a knock alert or anything else on RMM, same as we would on the service security side. The big difference here, though, is the SOC service that you are buying from most of those main SOC, the top industry vendors. Part of their service is a service with actual people that should be reviewing these alerts. So in combination with what they're going to do before they give the work for the MSP to do, and then from there, the work that we're going to do afterwards, where we take it. There's now two sets of people, two sets of analysts and technicians looking at something to determine if there's something that's relatable to another issue, a few tickets that, combined to show you a bigger problem, something more critical that you wouldn't have seen otherwise if it was just one particular ticket versus several. So there's value there.
And so with you integrating with some of these tools, do you have more integrations coming?
Oh yeah, I can't announce what they are because we're under NDAs, obviously. But
Okay.
we have right now we're partnered with 3 of them, and we'll have 5 within the year. I imagine within actually Q3, the stuff will be announced. We have goals for Q2 for a couple of them. We'll just see how it goes. The integrations just they're thorough, right? Take time to make them.
Um, so let's say we sign up for, I'm just going to pick a random product, Sophos or Bitdefender, the XDR or MD, the best one, right? The one that it's got their people and their people are going to review everything. At what point are you saying that their people aren't doing the remediation for me?
Correct. So here's the problem. Um, Generally speaking, most of the industry stocks are non-remediation services. They'll tell you that right away. They do
Okay.
not perform remediation. If you think about it, they don't really work within the MSP's environment. They've got agents installed to do a particular job, and then they have analysts who would be looking at data that'll come out from that, right? Um, when you look at something like Sentinel-1, so Sentinel-1 has their vigilance service, and it exclusively looks at Sentinel-1. Whereas, for example, and again, I keep going back to them because they're the easiest to reference. We talked about them already. Kaseya's product, Rocket Cyber Data Managed SOC, it's talking to Sentinel-1, but it's also talking to a whole bunch of things. So I like to look at lots of integrations as opposed to just a one-off. But when you do that, they very clearly advertise their non-remediation services. They don't live inside your environments. They're not technical hands to go and fix things. Their job is to find something that you need to know about resolving and resolve it yourself if you're an MSP. That's what it's
Okay. Okay. And your job is not to find something. So you know what I mean? Like, so you are not being the Rocket Cyber where you're looking at the logs and correlating and whatever else, right? You are literally saying, all right, you've got the outsourced SOC that's part of the next gen AV or whatever security product you're using. Great. Have them create the alerts and we'll do the remediation.
You got it. So, and that's why we call ourselves, we're not a SOC. We don't want to conflict with the SOC. We want to pick up from where they leave off. Again, no different than Knock and Help Desk. Our job is to be an extension of the MSP in servicing their clients. It's people doing the technical work. We've got a lot of skilled people doing technical jobs.
Gotcha. And I ask about the SOC stuff because you just said you're not a SOC, and on your website under our services, there's a thing that says SOC, and it says the only SOC with a true MSP focus. So are you a SOC or not?
Well, I got to check that out if that's on there. But the idea is we have SOC partners. That's what we have. And we
Okay.
are specifically not a SOC. What we are is a SOC remediation service.
Got it. Okay. And so basically
The problem, of course, is
the
put on the
the
website, crew or cyber response unit. Nobody will know what that is. SOC is the word people know, right? So,
gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I think this is starting to fall together, start making sense. Um, I'm trying to think of what other questions. I know that I've had a few people ask me about your partner advisory board stuff. Do you still have a partner advisory board?
sure do.
Okay. How does that work? I'll be honest, I've never been on a partner advisory board. I know a guy who's actively on like 30 partner advisory boards at any given time. Or at least it seems that way, because he talks to every vendor he starts working with about starting a partner advisory board and whatever else, right? So what is the function of your partner advisory board?
Sure. So we call it a PAC, so our Partner Advisory Council. So our PAC is made up of, at any given time, between 8 to 12 active MSP partners that have been with us for at least, I think the restriction is 9 months. They need to be of a certain size, which I think is greater than 3 full-time technicians and less than 15, which is generally speaking our sweet spot. Again, we have a lot of one-man or two men or two persons, MSP companies. But for our pack, we would require them to have to be a little bit larger. And the idea, we get together every 2 months, and we meet on various topics where their self-interest in mission controls growth, production, development, all the things that we're doing to expand and service MSPs, obviously is it affects them just as much as anybody else. So their input helps us to make decisions, understand client feedback, new announcements, things like that.
Okay. And that answers everything for me. All right.
We started that, I want to say, somewhere between 1.5 years and 2 years ago. And it was something that was recommended to us. And, what we didn't want to have just, people coming to complain. And then what we quickly came to realize was that the self-interest is so important. It's, it's selfish for them in a way that, it's selfish and selfless for them because they understand what they're getting out of it for their time. But at the same time, they understand it's for their greater good. And those conversations are so invaluable, so valuable.
Now, do you ever have conversations with partners where they make recommendations and you don't agree with the direction they want you to go?
Sure.
And how often would you say that happens? I mean, probably all the time, right? Like, because every partner thinks you are like at their beck and call because, the customer's always right.
I'll give you an example of something that got brought up in our last PAC meeting. So there's an MSP who had asked us. So our approach on call answering is that instead of having direct tech, we have an entire dispatch team to answer the phone. We do that because by their nature, technicians are not sitting there waiting for the phone to ring, twiddling their thumbs. They're busy, so you'd have longer wait times. And generally speaking, call answered by a technician, you're getting answered by a junior tech every time. That may or may not be appropriate. So for us, we have our dispatch team. Their entire purpose is to answer the phone as super quick as possible. They're far more client service and client experience focused than a technician. So their job is to have a great user experience, ask all the right questions, make a detailed ticket in the MSP's PSA, and then we'll figure it out from there. So the companies that want direct to tech, they understand why we do it that way. And their question was, could we expand into staff augmentation so that they could get dedicated people? And instead of it being a pod of resources that are always the same group of people, they want one person available for them half the time. So basically now doing staff augmentation, which is not something that Mission Control does today. And I have no idea if we want to do it. And it came out of the blue, and it's not something that I was going to dismiss. It was something that, okay, well, let me take this back to, internal management meetings and see what comes of it. But it was just an idea that was thrown out there in a PAC meeting. That just happened last week.
And I'll be honest, like that doesn't sound very profitable for you or the MSP, because your people are in Canada, right?
Well, they're across North America. So they're in Canada and the US.
Well, but I guess my point is they're not in the Philippines.
No, they're not.
So, I know some MSPs that are doing staff augmentation and they're getting guys from the Philippines who are, doing work for $9-10 an hour. And, that works. I can't attest to the security that they have to have in place in order to be able to do that. But, I feel like that's a good way to do it. But I'd like to think you pay your employees a fair wage. And it's probably similar to what we're paying our employees as MSPs. The difference is you are able to do that because any one of your customers, it's, isn't it like one ticket for every 2 end users that you're supporting? Or I mean, I know you've figured out what the reasonable metrics are for you to understand your profit margin and have everyone be on the up and up with that. So when you start saying, all right, well, I'll just have some guy sit at a desk here for 40 hours a week and he's all yours. I mean, your profit margin still has to exist in order to justify keeping that employee. So at that point, the MSP should probably just hire somebody.
Well, but so hiring people is, as we said, it's bloody difficult. And then keeping them is even harder, right? So the standard employee these days is costing somewhere between 30 and 50% more than they did 3 years ago. They're less talented, if I can be honest, and their loyalty is often non-existent. So they'll go across the street for an extra, $50 a week. And so that's a really tough position for an MSP to be in, especially when they're hiring local resources. So if you're in Cleveland, you're hiring Cleveland local people. For us, we hire across North America. It's a much larger playing field. We certainly pay fair, but I think we still do hourly services, and we charge appropriately to our clients, and we make our margin that way. But I think looking at it, the difference between us having a pot of people and we charge for our time that way, and we can manage it that way, but it's ours to manage, versus giving a dedicated resource as a staff augmentation, it's a very different business. Let's say that you don't like the person, or we have an issue with the person, and that's the one person. So I have no redundancy to it, right? I can't charge you for 2 people or 3 people. That'd be a pod, or at least a small pod. I'm charging for one person, so now it's very subjective. That person might have a Canadian way of talking as opposed to a Southern US way of talking. Same language, still North American, a little bit different, right? So now do I have to provide a resource in Cleveland, which now we're in the same boat. So there's just a lot of challenges, and it's just not something we've ever done as a business. And I don't know, again, if we will or will not, it's something to consider. But you asked if we had, received suggestions on the pack before that we didn't do, and it was just the most fresh in my mind. We've had other suggestions that have been far more appropriate, or far more relatable to current offerings that still we just looked at and say we can't do. One of the things that comes up all the time is if we have an end user that has requested something where we need unattended access. So we don't need the end user to do the job, but we need to take over the computer to do the job. So we don't need the user, we don't need the password, but we need to take over control. Usually we would do that after hours. But then we need to know that we can get access to the machine. We need to know that we can have the machine powered on. And it becomes the MSP's request to us was, can we do this and just not bother the end user? And half of the MSPs are like, can you do this? And always make sure the end user knows. I'm like, well, how do we satisfy everything like that? These are kind of conversations that come up in the pack.
All right. I just assumed that you guys would have already had a solution for that.
We do, but it's the way we do it. So now they're asking for a change.
Oh.
Right. So for us, if we're gonna bother the end user, we will always communicate with them first. We can do a scheduling of calls. There's a whole bunch of options that we can do to make sure that we don't disrupt the user during the day. Or if we do that, it's something that's scheduled and they know it's going to happen. But we get oddball requests all the time. An MSP wants us to do it. They want us to do it after hours. They want us to prepare everything, and they want to not tell the end user. It's like, why wouldn't you want the end user to know? But sometimes they ask for that.
Interesting. Okay. The crew, the CRU, cyber response unit, what is pricing like on that?
So the goal is to, because it's so new, the goal is to get it to a per device model, because I think it's what a lot of MSPs like, is the way they charge. Right now, we're doing it exclusively by time. And the cool part about doing it that way is you literally can tell us precisely what scope you want us to cover, because we're not going to do anything and charge you anything until you tell us what that scope is. So like I was saying earlier, do it for one client, do it for these clients, do it for these clients, but only if it's non-urgent and it falls within these hours and it's a SentinelOne or a Bitdefender item.
Oh, wow.
Really get granular with this, as opposed to do everything and charge for whatever. Again, we want the MSP to have control on their costs and control over, what, because cybersecurity is so security focused thing, they may be more conscious about the things that they want to do themselves.
Okay. I can appreciate and respect you doing it that way, especially to start, because with it being a new service, you don't know what your averages are yet.
That's right. And each SOC tool that we use will produce results differently.
Well, yeah, not only that, but the way that the customer customizes the way that you're doing the remediation will also change the results as well.
Yep, you got it.
So yeah, I mean, if one guy says I only want you to do it after hours, and another guy says I want you to handle it only from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., those are going to have two very different bills.
For sure.
So, cool, man. Is there anything else that you want MSPs to know about Mission Control Knock and HelpDesk right now?
Well, in general, I think, if you've never heard of us before, the idea is that we want to be a white label extension of you, right? And so that means that your clients know that they don't know who Mission Control is. They know you, they know your company. If they call you, they're calling you. If they're emailing you, right? Our job is to be integrated with your stuff, tickets for the most part, right? Documentation, that kind of thing. We want you to see everything that we're doing as we do it in real time. And the idea is that you're using our technical team as an extension of yours in order to service your clients. With hiring being such problems, you're now able to grow and scale. You're not in a worry where if you lost an employee that you can't handle the load. If you get a new client that you couldn't handle that customer. All those kind of situations kind of go away when you have a group of people in your back pocket that you didn't have before, right? So that's what Mission Control is focused on. And whether it be knock support for servers and network appliances, the stuff that should never go down without somebody knowing about it, we can help with that 24/7. If it's the end user support, anything from SaaS applications to their laptops, desktops, workstations, smartphones, tablets, the answering of the calls, the amount of level 1 calls that come in for password resets and whatever bogs people down like crazy. Special projects, and of course our cyber response unit. Our job is to help you get through all those tasks because the workload just continues to increase for an MSP today, especially with more technologies and more integrations and more, etc. So if you don't know about us, those would be the things that I would say check us out for. As I mentioned, founded and based in North America and fully white labeled, fully integrated, full 24/7 support if you need it.
Perfect. One last question, Jason. How many Internet Explorer 11 phone calls has Mission Control taken today?
Probably 0. I'm so glad. I was really afraid you were going to lead to a Super Bowl question. I was just like, please don't go to the Super Bowl. So steering away from that, I don't think any IE 11 questions today.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard
some Firefox, but no IE 11.
I have one of the guys here. I saw him post in Slack. Well, just got our first IE 11 call. It's going exactly the way you expected it would, with a little dumpster fire emoji. So apparently there are still tools out there that require IE 11, and those people are hosed.
Yeah. Internet Explorer is one of those things where I think, MSPs need to do their thing in trying to get the user away from if they can. But like you said, there's just certain web apps, even ActiveX web apps, that you have to have it. Just crazy.
Oh, man. Well, Jason, thank you so much for hopping on here with me, man. This was fun.
Steve, you're awesome. I've always enjoyed our conversations. I do wish you all the best with your new endeavors. I'm thrilled that Rocket MSP is back in your own hands and that you can do it the way you want. I think that's awesome.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much. And for everyone still here watching, thanks so much, guys. Feel free to let me know if you have questions on any of my upcoming podcast episodes. I know I've got Zest MSP. I've got Auvik I'm working on. I've got a boatload that's already scheduled, and I'm getting things lined up. So you guys are going to have tons of content to watch soon. Cool. All right. Thanks so much, everybody.